Hello, Core 3 Topic students. This is Marcos, and I'm here to give our Week 13 recap and our Week 14 briefing as we go into the next week. I want to make sure everyone is on track with their project and as prepared as possible when we meet again on Tuesday. So I just want to kind of go over things and share with you what you should be doing and how to plan ahead. As you see here on our project timeline, we are entering week 14 now. We should have our logos finalized, our brand standard guidelines developed, and our basic touch points for our two different options developed. And now we're going to go into our touch point and brand program development, meaning to create the core touch points for your final logo, like expanding on what you've already done, and then creating your key program designs, what you select based on your project, whether it's an app, a website, a magazine, or packaging for a product, or whatever variety of those kinds of important touch points that you want to spend your time doing, so that you have a smart brand design as well as thorough design exploration of that brand and how it would express itself. And we're doing all that in order to get finalized and ready for our week 16 final presentation reviews. So as you can see here, we have basically 2 full weeks to work on the project, with the third week being the final review day. So it's important now that you plan your time well and that you focus your attention on getting your project done, and that you have the discipline to really be critical and manage your time well and focus on getting this project developed as well as possible. Because as we've been talking from the very beginning of class, this is a important class for you in terms of developing not only your skills and refining your abilities to be a designer, but to be able to showcase it through a project like this. That will be a key part of your portfolio and a way for you to express your skill sets and your talents when presenting yourself in the future. So I want everyone to make sure they put in the time needed to make this as good as possible, and to develop a project you'll be proud of and will showcase what you can do. So for the workflow, what we'll be doing for our next steps is some things that should be done by now, but maybe they're not. If they're not, then it's what you should be focusing on, which is you should have completed a sample page of touch points for each concept. So again, remember, we've been talking about this, that a big part of this presentation isn't to just get to the conclusion of what your logo is going to be. It's going to be about demonstrating your ability to showcase different ways of looking at a brand and how it could be designed into a logo and into a identity system. So the first part of this project, of the design portion of this project, is to show how you've developed 2 to 3 options of what design directions of what your logo can look like. Within those design directions, there may even be a few options for each, but it's about showing a variety of directions that have a strategy behind them, that have a concept, that have design inspiration, and showcase the look of that logo, not only as a logo, but also on some sample touch points. I'll show you that in a second, just to remind you, but please be sure you're doing that. And it's not just about creating a logo and going for it. So you should have a decision on your final logo design with a tagline and graphic standard guidelines for that final logo. That's where you should be at this point to have all that done. And then what we're going to start doing now is to create core touch points. Like, we're going to move on from just the few that you've done and make some of the base touch points that showcase what a organization or a company or a brand could look like, whether it's stationery or a website page or any part of their corporate identity, their office branding, logos within their space, just the kinds of things that would help make it look like this brand that you're developing is alive and exists, or can be once your brand is implemented. And then from there, it'll be about identifying from your early strategy, like what was it that you thought you would make this brand be about? What was going to be the key piece? Was it going to be an app that would be that would communicate the brand and create positive change, or could it be a awareness campaign, an advertising campaign that focuses more on your issue directly? Or is it a product that you want to be selling? Is it a program of events? Or is it all those things wrapped into one? Like, I want to make sure that you have like a really thorough way of expressing your brand in a variety of touch points. If you remember that wheel we showed in the beginning of class where we showed what a touch point is, well, there were a lot of things around that wheel, and that is how you should be thinking now. Like, what are the ways I can show up with this brand in different applications that will make it as effective and real as possible. So just to remind you now, from last week, this is the example set of images that show what I was expecting from everyone. And many of you have done this, some of you are still working on it, but make sure here at the top corner, you have a concept in words with the idea written down. You have inspiration, design inspiration that helps lead you towards what your logo direction is going to be. And it not only should be helping lead you, but in your presentation, it should help the person you're presenting to understand what it is and how you're expressing these ideals that are written out in visual form, and then come to this logo. And then for each logo concept, you should have a set of mock-ups of touch points that show, here I'm in the way here, how the how the logo applies to certain elements to make it, to put it into context. And then you and then within this, students, they have a second logo direction within this first concept, and they do the same thing. And then here in the middle, we have concept 2 with, again, with a statement and with a concept theme, design inspiration, and then the logo execution touch points that showcase how this logo applies, some tagline options, and then a final decision showcasing what the final decision is and what the final touch point is on the bottom here, and then the graphic standards, the typography that supports it, the color palette, and any other graphic elements that may be part of your logo system. So that's where you should be now. And if you're not, you need to make sure you're building towards that. It's going to be part of your final presentation. It's going to be a key part of your grade. So don't just skip over this and do your logo the way you think it's going to be, and forget about this idea of exploring different directions and sharing their thinking process and your visual process. Very important to do. Please do it. And then now I want to move towards what we're going to do next with sharing another case study from a past student who did a project on human trafficking. And I'm going to go through the actual presentation with you. If I can, there we go. So this is the deck, and I'm just going to quickly page through the early pages of the deck. And this is something that all of you should already have, but you should be looking at them as we work towards our final, and making sure that you have this kind of setup where you talk about the cause. You, in a way, educate your audience when you present this towards what your bigger, broader issue is through different statistics and different ways of communicating what it is that's the challenge for this problem or this social issue. And then create some goals for what your brand is going to be about. Set up who your target audience is and who you're going to be speaking to, and then showcase a few case studies of other organizations or companies that are doing similar. We call these competitors, but they're not really competitors, they're maybe partners, but showcase what it is that's being done in this in the issue that you're trying to tackle, like who's out there working towards it. Or it could also be an example of who's doing a different issue, but doing it in an interesting way to help build your case for what you're going to do with your brand. And then you're going to get into your brand strategy, how you're going to approach this issue through a brand, and in what way will you bring awareness or try to solve the problem or try to raise money to solve the problem. And these things you're talking about earlier on should be reflected in what you're going to be designing next. In this case, you're talking about partnerships and finding a way to work with institutions to help get their audience attention and to help bring this subject to them in a way that will make it easier for the brand to operate, because they'll be working through a partnership with an institution that already has an audience that is aligned with their own audience. And then start looking at presenting what your names are going to be and the options you develop for that. And this is a part of the creative process of something that you can showcase in terms of what you've been doing with this brand and how your thinking revolves around the idea of naming a brand. That's something you should make sure you leverage, and not just sort of cheaply discuss the options you have, but like, this is an important skill set that you're demonstrating here, so showcase that in a good way. And then the design personality, mood boards that visualize the look and feel of the brand in a general overall way. And then this is the part we've been working on, the concept section for the logo, and the mood board for the visual inspiration, and then the design itself. So as you can see in these 3 easy steps, secure, approachable is the concept, and the idea of providing a sense of security around the idea of human trafficking and creating a sort of safeness to the look of the brand, showcasing how safeness and protection can come to life through visual elements, and then going towards what this person did for their solution for their first logo. So that's a really good demonstration of how to use words and visual inspiration to lead towards a solution specifically here. And this idea of like no as a name is very smart, because it means both having an awareness, a knowledge, and no, and it also means no, like do not. And in this kind of design solution, it not only showcases the breakup of those 2 uses of the word, but it also provides this kind of safe perimeter around the brand that demonstrates this idea of secure and approachable. And then a couple of touch points just to show what that would look like, and then repeat the same step with concept 2, iconic, showcasing mood boards that show iconic visuals, and then trying to create this logo that reflects that approach with touch points. And they're exactly the same touch points, which is perfectly fine, because it's just about showing it in context. And then concept 3, transparent and trustworthy, another idea that gets visualized through mood boards. How does transparency look in a graphic design way, and how does trustworthiness get expressed? And here we have the solution for this direction, using transparency literally with the typography and pulling out the word no, but also keeping the word no as acknowledged there, looking at it through a color application, and then looking at how to use taglines to support that. So no, say no to human trafficking, and bringing it all together as the final logo idea. And then showing the core touch points, or the key sample touch points, and then creating this brand standards guidelines that show the logo and color, show the typography options, and show the color palette. And now we go to the part where we're starting our work now. And here we reiterate the partnership idea that was expressed earlier in the presentation. And in this case, the student decided to create a partnership through public schools across the United States. And the smart thing about that is that their audience was their issue was human trafficking, and human trafficking happens a lot to mainly young girls and middle school age girls. And this is a very scary and important issue to be addressing and to bringing awareness to. So to taking this towards the school system, when you create a program that works within something like a public school system, if it works in one of them, it should work in all of them. And that's a lot of kids to get aware of. So this person proposed the idea of a campaign that creates what she called No Week. And No Week is about an awareness week that brings education towards human trafficking and talks about the issue, while also bringing together kind of in a celebratory way, brings people together. It's a very dark subject matter. So instead of making it all dark and scary, bringing it into a positive light by spreading the awareness of what to watch out for and how to be vigilant against this terrible issue. but doing it in a way that excites people and brings them together. And the way she did it was to have a week that every school can do, and to literally put together a program of how that week would scope out. So day one, she planned a bake sale that would be about raising money for the issue and getting people to participate, both kids, parents, the parent teacher organizations, or the and showcasing what that looks like through visuals. So a lot of you might think of like designing mock-ups as the idea of making designs on objects, and that is part of it. But within this kind of brand expression, a lot of you should be doing this idea of like finding imagery that you can sequester to use as mock-ups that show what your events will look like with people interacting and doing the things that express what you're doing. So here's this idea of a bake sale, finding the right images where you could lightly, you can see back here in this whiteboard, it was mocked in that says human trafficking something, I can't read it, but to use just enough to hint towards the idea that this is for the brand. And one thing that could have been probably made better here is maybe to have the no logo on this shirt right here. So to find ways to just kind of customize a moment like this towards looking like it's your thing. And then doing the same here with the bake sale items, and using the branding throughout the way that the pricing cards are made, and other sorts of elements where the brand logo shows up. And then there was a seminar day on day 2 where they would have speakers. And then the idea is to showcase the idea of having speakers, but also showcasing how the branding would show up within that, this sort of lanyard design, and finding just like, this takes time to search for it, but finding this perfect picture here where it showcases the speaker. I'm assuming it's Angela, and it has the branding and the laptop here, which is a pretty smart way to do it. And then here's more of the same, showcasing the idea of like lots of students being involved while there's a speaker talking about the issue, while there's branding on the podium. So it's about creating a story, almost like sort of reverse journalism, like as if your brand already exists, and you're showcasing what the results are through photography that you've kind of doctored up. So there was a talent show as part of the idea, like getting kids involved through using their own talents and their own excitement to perform. And here we see mocking and human trafficking messaging behind the drummer here. And then as well as a talent show, there's like a festival day where there's events, and it's just like I said earlier, like it's taking a negative thing and making a positive event out of it, with the awareness being the thread that that's supporting or sponsoring these fun events. And then no day is day 5, and they had a basketball tournament, like maybe it was faculty versus students or some way where there's a basketball tournament and they play a game, and creating these mock-ups that show both the activity as well as like advocacy, activism posters that were at the game. And then a participation certificate that shows sort of the completion of the week, and it gives students something to kind of quantify or show that they were part of this, and to remind them of what they learned. And then creating other elements like poster schedules or brochures that talk about the issue itself. And then things like the basketball game ticket. And then, of course, social media. And with social media is something you should do by utilizing the work that you do for your other pieces. Like you can see here, they're repurposing a lot of the images to create a social media page. Okay, so that's just an example of what you should be building now for the next couple of weeks. Obviously, this is a specific project that may not be related to what you're doing, but you have to think about what is it that you can do for your project that will integrate your brand in the best way. So I put the assignment on Canvas for part 6 with a link to the Google Drive and a link to some examples of videos for finalists in the past. So first I want to make sure you are aware that it's important that you keep posting your progress every week on these Google Drive folders, because they're going to be part of what I use when I'm grading. I'm going to look at each of these drives to see if you've been keeping up with the progress of every week's expectation, and if you've posted something. And if you're not doing that, that's going to affect your grade. It's going to show a lack of following through on what's expected and not going through the proper process of what I want. So please just put your progress there. It doesn't have to be finished or completed. It should be exactly where you're at this point. And have that there, because it does show the dates too. So if you're doing it on the last day of class, that's still better than not doing it, but it'll show me that you didn't do it weekly like I've asked you to. So please keep this going and have each of these folders with a project update, a PDF from you weekly. And then also, as you see here, there's a resources button in our Google Drive folder, and in that resources button is an independent project final presentation example videos folder. And in that folder, there are 5 different videos of final presentations of students presenting their final presentation. I want you to watch all those so that you're aware of the kinds of work that's been done in the past, and also so you get a view of how your project should be working in the full context of from start to finish, and what you'll be expected to have done in the next 2 weeks. And also so that you can be prepared to create your own video and see how other students communicate their branding projects in a speaking, presenting way that I want each of you to do. We'll be making these videos in a couple of weeks. Okay, so as we continue with our unofficial class, because I'm on strike, this is the same schedule for Tuesday. Optional if you want to check in with me. I'll just be on Zoom, and these are the times that we've been following. So please, if you're needing guidance, I'll be available in an unofficial capacity to just give you feedback and keep you guided towards where you should go. So that's it. And of course, you can also reach out to me by email or ask to set up a separate time if needed, because those 5 minutes are pretty quick, or 9 minutes are pretty quick. All right, everybody. So please, this is the time to take all the rest and recovery from your Thanksgiving break that you're experiencing now, and then put it into this sort of final last push to really push yourself to work hard, to do as much as you can as possible, to really create a brilliant and beautiful presentation that's going to reflect the work that you're doing as a student here at Parsons. Something that you can look back at next month, next year, or in 10 years or later and be proud of. And I'm here to help you get that done in a successful way. All right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you Tuesday.